Hello world, and we are back. My name is Kyle Official, and this is going to be episode 115 of my poker vlog. For this one, I cover my September meetup game, which is a 1-3 $10 bomb pot. My October meetup game is scheduled for October 15th, so if you're interested in playing that game, definitely comment below. Additionally, I'm planning my first trip to Texas to the Georgetown Poker Club, scheduled for November 17th to the 20th, so if you're in the Texas area, be on the lookout for that. Finally, I'm still a member of a Club GG Poker Club. They offer a 20% first-time deposit bonus, as well as a free roll tournament every Thursday night. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. All right, we arrive at Orange City for the second meetup game. Looks like a good day. 1-3, no limit, $10 bomb pot, 500 max buy-in, so that's what I buy in for. And we get involved extremely early. When I $10 button straddle, there are 3 callers. I look down at 10-8 of spades. This hand that's probably fine to raise, but I think it's also fine to play multi-way in position. The meetup game just started. No need to get super outlined just yet, so I check my option. Flop comes ace-3, deuce-2 spades. Extremely happy with that board. Flopping a flush draw, even though it's going to be pretty hard for me to rep an ace when I don't raise pre-flop. However, the cutoff leads out for $11. I'm happy to just make the call and see what develops. The other 2 players fold, so we're heads up to a turn card where we hit the flush immediately. 5 of spades is an extremely welcome sight.
Isn't that wonderful? It couldn't be more wonderful.
We are extremely confident we have the best hand. Even better, my opponent continues for $20. I don't really see a reason to raise just yet. Having position, I can always make sure that there is a bet on the river, and a raise here might make my opponent fold ace-x holdings or medium pocket pairs, so definitely want to keep all of his hands in right now. The river is the jack of hearts, doesn't really change anything. I'm extremely happy to see my opponent does not slow down. He throws out another bet, this time $35. Definitely going to raise here. My opponent has bet all 3 streets, so I'm hoping he has like an ace-x, maybe even an ace-jack hand that can pay off a $125 bet. However, after a bit of thinking, my opponent folds this one. So, good fold, sir. Could not get the raise on the river.
I don't know, man. I don't buy the regular not freeze. I like the not feel bad.
Next hand of note. With 1 limp, I raise to $15 with pocket 6s. The small blind and the limper decide to call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of ace-10, 3, 2 clubs. Unlike last hand, being the pre-flop aggressor, I could easily have a strong ace, so I'm definitely going to continue betting here, especially when check to me. I could fold out all the equity that like king jack and maybe even like a weak 10 would have. So when it's checked to me, I bet $25. Small blind calls, the limper folds, so we're going heads up to a turn card, which is the deuce of hearts. When my opponent checks to me, I think this is a good spot to bet a second time. Weaker aces may fold to the second barrel. Additionally, I can get called by either a club or heart flush draw, to which I'm actually blocking both of, so I think my hand functions pretty well as a 2-barrel candidate, especially when the turn does not add an additional overcard to my 6s. So I decided to bet $45. To this bet, my opponent calls pretty quickly, so I've definitely had my hand caught in the cookie jar. Absolutely cannot continue anymore. Till the river is an offsuit 6. Like, what in the world? So ridiculous.
Surprised, aren't you? I knew you would be.
Now, my opponent has about $200 in his stack. I don't reasonably think I can get all of it right here if my opponent had like ace-jack, ace-queen, something like that. I think 3 barrels and then 1 massive one's just going to get that to fold a lot of the time. And that's really what I'm targeting here, trying to get paid off. So I settle on a sizing of $110. My opponent almost beats me into the pot, so obviously an all-in probably would have worked here. I show the ridiculous cooler, and unfortunately for my opponent, he had ace-10. So very unfortunate river for my opponent, but I'm definitely very happy with it. The stack's looking good. For only a $500 buy-in, we're up a few hundred at this point. I continue to win a few smaller sized pots before we arrive at the next hand of note. With 1 limp, a middle position player raised to $20. I call in the cutoff with queen 10 of spades. Think it's reasonable, can play multi-way. No real need to 3-bet this one, I don't think. The button calls and one of the limpers calls, so we go 4 ways to a flop of queen 10, 3, 2 clubs. We are absolutely sun running so far in this session.
Eureka!
On this board, it checks to the pre-flop aggressor. That opponent checks. I'm definitely not going to, especially with plenty of straight draws, plenty of flush draws, and even Queen X and 10X that could pay off a bet. So I bet $40. Surprisingly, all three of my opponents decide to call. So really hoping to see a brick on the turn here. 5 of diamonds definitely suffices that request. When it checks to me a second time, I think I really need to size up here. There's a bunch of draws I want to get value from. Plenty of cards that are going to kill me on the river, so I size to $160. To this bet, the button is all in for less. Fine with that. An early position player thinks for a long time, like over a minute. Clearly has a really big decision to make. Thankful to see him let it go. Clearly had a bunch of equity he's giving up here. And then the pre-flop aggressor folds ace-king face up, so he also had a gut shot. I show my queen 10 as I think I'm definitely good at this point. My opponent claims he had 6-4 of clubs. So faded the absolute world with the river 3 of hearts. And we're happy to scoop another decent sized pot.
I could have been clubs there.
No, I had clubs.
Oh, you had clubs?
So
Yeah, I could have.
I put you on maybe top pair or second pair.
I could have been on clubs too, though, easily. Though with
I had
nothing
9-8 of
left.
clubs. I was like, gut shot plus some clubs.
Back to just showing the fun wild streets of this table. Here we have a 3-way all-in on the flop. Button doesn't show his cards. Blind shows 6-4 offsuit. Quite an adventurous jam. And 7-card flush, another vlogger. He shows pocket kings, very clear favorite. Turn is a queen, cuts out so many outs of the 6-4. And the river's a 6. What a weird game. 6-4 offsuit cracks kings at these meetup games. Please take a moment and subscribe. So back to a hand that I'm playing. I button straddle. There's 1 limp. 7-card flush raises to $40. I think it's a reasonable spot to continue with 8-9 of hearts. So I make the call. The limper calls as well. So we're going 3 ways to 6-7-3 rainbow. No heart. Definitely an above average flop for me. When it checks to the pre-flop aggressor, he continues for $65. I personally think this is a mistake. This is a board that really will never connect with a pre-flop aggressor. And a limp caller has all the sets, all the 2 pairs. The only players that can have the made straights already, and the hand that I actually have is a straight draw. So thinking I have a clear nut advantage, I'm going to raise this one up. Additionally, raising here allows me to have the betting lead and navigate the turn and river in position. So I raise to $175. The limp caller folds and 7-card flush decides to go all in.
Not anymore.
For about $460. Very big shove. I really don't give my opponent credit for having anything because honestly in the moment, the hand that was going through my mind is this hand from Best Bet Live where my opponent 4-bets ace-jack, c-bets huge on a board that really shouldn't connect to him that much, gets raised and then just goes with it. He's definitely capable of having more than just like aces and kings here. So if I give myself credit for the pair outs, it's pretty close. 300 to win, 700 to 800, I'd say is pretty much the odds I need to make this call. I think I definitely would if there was a single heart out there, but with my exact holding, even if I think my opponent has ace high, there are some calls that I think are just too crazy to make.
She calls?
So I make the fold. If you want to see what hand he had, check out his video, 7-card flush on YouTube.
Can you run it twice here or not? No. No?
Okay, next interesting hand. With a button straddle, there's 1 limp. I raise to $30 with Jack 10 of diamonds. 2 later position players call and a limper calls, so we're going 4 ways to a flop of Queen Jack 8 2 clubs. When it checks to me, I wouldn't always continue into 3 people, but this is going to be one of the times that I will. Middle pair and a gut shot I think is definitely good enough. Definitely ahead of hands like Ace King, Ace 10, maybe 10 8, Jack 9, things such as that. Plenty of hands that I'm ahead of as well as club draws. So I continue for $60. 2 later position callers fold, but the limp caller decides to call. Alright, not super happy about that. Turn is the 7 of diamonds. When my opponent checks to me, I think it's fine to slow down here with the intention of calling any river bet, besides like maybe like the gross 10 of clubs. So we're going to slow down here, try to get the showdown as cheaply as possible. Check it back. River's the 3 of spades. My opponent checks to me. There are some times where just a weak queen is going to be beating me, but there are plenty of other times where my opponent just had clubs and called the c-bet, and I got a bunch of extra value and they missed. Regardless, I checked this one back, and my opponent had 9-7 of spades. So called for the gut shot and turned a pair, but pair of jacks is definitely good here. After winning another small pot, the stack looks quite well. $500 buy-in up to around $800 or $900, so I'd say that's pretty good. Before it folds to me in middle position, I raise to $15 with ace king of diamonds. 2 later position players call, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of ace 8-5 with 1 diamond. Definitely extremely happy on this board. Top backdoor flush draw. Pretty standard c-bet spot, so I bet $20. 1 later position player calls and the other one folds, so we're heads up to a turn. Turn is the 6 of diamonds. Definitely connects the board a little bit more, and there are plenty of times where I would slow down on this connected board. But when it also gives me a flush draw, I think it's plenty fine to continue betting here. Additionally, I get paid by like ace jack, ace 10, things such as that. Maybe an ace 9 will continue as they pick up a gut shot. So I continue for $50, and my opponent calls very quickly, so probably going to shut down on this river. Until the river's the 7 of diamonds. So we river the nut flush.
And I feel so much better now.
There are some universes where I'm against a straight flush, but if my opponent has it, good for him. Now we have to think about sizing. I think the weakest hand my opponent can have is like ace jack here, but I think what's much more likely is some form of 2-pair combination, or maybe one end of the 4-liner where they just flopped like pair plus 3 or pair plus 9, and now they back their way into a straight. So I think I definitely have to go really big here, and I size up to $140, and my opponent snap calls with 8-9. So very unlucky run out for him, especially having the 9 of diamonds for a diamond blocker and straight flush blocker and straight blocker. Gross spot for my opponent, but very happy with that run out.
I can add. And subtract.
I know.
Well, I mean,
Next interesting hand. With a $10 straddle, there's 1 limp. I look down at pocket 6s. A clear premium, always flop sets with them. Definitely don't want to be a nit at my own meetup game, so I raised to $25. I'm instantly punished where the button goes all in. Total of about $165. Then it folds to me. This opponent's been some good action at the table, played many hands, played with some wild cards. This should really probably just be a call, but in the moment I really just thought my opponent would have like 8s or 9s or something like that, where I'm really just being pipped pair over pair, not even like 2 overs. Thinking my call is for a 20% chance to win, I decide to fold. And my opponent had ace king, so would have been a flip, but I did not choose to run it this time. Ah, well, we know for next time. Well, the stack's doing very good from a $500 buy-in. Extremely happy with how I've been running and how the game's been going. Before we arrive at the first double board bomb pot of the vlog. In this hand, I have ace queen offsuit, and the boards come ace 10-3, 2 diamonds, and 10-5 deuce, 2 spades. Having top pair on one of the boards when it's not PLO, I think is pretty good. I think it's worthy of a bet to thin the field. There are plenty of flush draws on both boards that any of my opponents could call with, and if they have just a 10, like they're probably gonna call, and I'm gonna have one board pretty much locked up. So I bet $35. It folds all the way to an early position player who is the only caller. When the turn is the 6 of diamonds and the queen of diamonds, completing a flush on top but giving me top pair on bottom. When he checks to me, I think this is a fine spot to check back. 2 top pairs is pretty good. No reason to bloat the size of the pot when my opponent can literally have anything. And when the rivers come, the jack of clubs and the 3 of spades. Now both flushes make it. My opponent checks to me, and I'm pretty certain I'm going to get one of these boards. If my opponent has an ace X, he may call and I'll scoop. If my opponent has just a 10 and has a pair on both boards and feels confident with that, I'll still scoop. Thinking that I could be good on both boards a decent amount of time, I wager $75. My opponent thinks for a little bit and then eventually folds. I show as it's a friendly game and winning bomb pots is fun. Next hand of note. With 2 limps, I raise to $15 with ace queen of diamonds. Both blinds and the limper call, so we're going 5 ways to a flop. of queen 6 4 2 clubs. Super happy to flop top top. When it checks all the way to me, I'm going to continue on within the field, get value from flush draws, get value from worse queens. I bet $40. Well, one person folds face up, showing king 6 of diamonds. Somewhat relevant, as there's a 6 out there. Another player folds. The hijack decides to make the call, and the other player folds as well. So we're heads up to a turn card, which is the 4 of diamonds. Pairs the bottom card. Takes away a lot of sets and 2-pair combinations my opponent can have. So this is a spot where I think I'm going to continue. I still don't want a flush draw to be able to chase for free, so we're definitely going to continue on this one. On this card, I bet $75, and my opponent makes the call again. The river is the king of hearts. And here's where things go off the rails. My opponent leads into me for $250.
This is worse than I thought. Much worse.
Very interesting spot. I don't really think my opponent can ever have a king here because it'd be a very ridiculous lead with a king. Additionally, we saw the small blind fold king 6 exactly, so really reducing the chances of that happening. And besides that, every draw missed. Like if he had 5-3, 7-5 missed clubs, all of that might try to lead for such a large sizing, hoping that it gets me to fold a hand exactly like ace queen, especially when a king hits the river and they've missed all their draws. So that being my rationale, I eventually put in the call, and my opponent had pocket sixes. So I will say it is an excellent lead by my opponent on the river. I am 100% checking it back at this point, and he got the absolute maximum. Congratulations, sir. And again, to show how ridiculous this game is, here's another three-way all-in pre. We've got aces versus ace king versus what I'm told is a small pocket pair, and after the run out, aces will hold on this one to make a massive stack. This 1-3 meetup game is always wild.
We see his hand. Don't. You don't have to do it. I know, but I want to look at him. He don't care.
A final hand of note. I'm under the gun. I raised to $15. The under the gun +1 raised to $35. Definitely less than ideal. One later position player calls. I'm going to call. Ace queen of diamonds just too strong to fold for only $35. And the flop is queen jack 4 rainbow 1 diamond. Feeling very confident about my hand. I check to the pre-flop 3-better. He decides to check, and the later position player decides to check as well. Still going 3 ways to a turn card, which is the 6 of diamonds. Excellent card. We pick up a diamond flush draw, even though horror thoughts of my opponent having pocket sixes are definitely in the back of my mind. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We need to build the size of the pot right now. Top plus a flush draw is good for a $50 bet. Well, the pre-flop 3-better now decides to go all in for $300.
Interesting reaction. But what does it mean?
After the later position player thinks for a very long time, he eventually folds, and then it's on me. I do think this line makes sense at some frequency with a hand like ace king, aces and kings. I think with this stack size, a check jam works a lot of the time. But I think my opponent could also have ace queen, ace jack. I'm free rolling the ace queen and the ace jack's drawn pretty thin. And even if I'm beat, I can just hit my flush draw. So we are definitely not going to fold this one, especially against this particular player who has been extremely wild at this table. I make the call, hoping to hit my flush. Not this time, it's the 9 of clubs. But luckily for me, my opponent had 5-3 offsuit. And ace queen is going to be good on this one.
I can't fold when I have diamonds too. But when I'm sorry, when I have diamonds too, I just can't.
No, I'm not trying to crack my fan. I got one fan, it's him.
And now I have 0.
And now to finally show the ridiculousness of this game, we have one final 3-way all-in on the flop. We've got 7-9 for a flopped straight plus flush draw, king jack for a higher flush draw, 7 deuce, even though we're not playing the 7 deuce game, for just a straight draw. Turn pairs the board.
You want the 6 of hearts, I guess?
Chop! Heart! Chop! Heart! Heart!
Straight flush.
River makes the king high flush the winner. The flop straight plus 2 flush blockers is crushed. Congrats to the winner of that hand. I win one smaller, less notable pot before it's time for me to leave. I'm in the game for $500, out of the game for $997. That is a profit of $497 across 7 hours, equates to $71 an hour or 23 big blinds an hour. If you watched all the way to this point, thank you. I appreciate it. Definitely happy with how I ran. Wish I could have folded the ace queen versus pocket sixes hand, but you know, it is what it is. I hope to see y'all in one of my future meetup games. Otherwise, I will see you on the next one.